Hi, young scholars. Master P here from the Language of Composition 3rd edition, otherwise known as TLC 3E. We are going to discuss today the analysis writing prompt, which you will find in the writing section of the AP Language and Composition exam. Before we get into details, I want to first congratulate you on taking this course. It is not an easy course, but the skills that you learn with reading and writing are skills that you can use in any field and any career that you may find yourself in down the line. So congratulations on your hard work. I'd also like to applaud your English teacher who is no doubt grading papers right now. It's a lot of work to teach this course. So if you haven't thanked your English teacher today, please go ahead and do so. All right, so a couple of reminders about these writing prompts before we get into specifics with the analysis prompt. First of all, your essay, no matter which writing prompt you're addressing, must address the prompt. You could write the most beautiful piece of argument you've ever written, but if you don't actually connect your argument to what the College Board is asking you to do on the prompt, you won't earn a very high score. So the rule of thumb is that you need to read those prompts carefully, slowly, and critically. I know it's stressful, you're in a timed situation, you know you only have a limited amount of time to write your essay, but don't rush past the prompt, read them carefully. And one of the things that you might be able to, that you should take comfort in, is the fact that the prompts typically consist of the same elements and follow the same format every year. So even though you won't know what you're writing about until the day you sit down to take the exam, you should take comfort in becoming familiar with the format so you at least know what to expect in general on the exam day. My other piece of advice, let's see, I got to fit in among these guys, is to pay very close attention to the verbs within the prompts. Those verbs instruct you on what to do, and that's a really important aspect of these prompts. All right, so I'm going to minimize the camera so that we can get into this analysis essay prompt. All right. Speaking of verbs, let's talk about the verb analyze, because this is the verb you will see on the analysis essay prompt. The verb analyze means to break apart, but I want to point out that this part of the definition is really only part of the story. So a lot of students, when they write the analysis essay, they do a great job of breaking the passage apart. In other words, their essay may look at and examine a whole bunch of rhetorical strategies. It's identifying a lot of rhetorical strategies. But what they fail to do is this second critical piece of the definition, which is to look at how parts function to create the whole. So really going beyond just identifying rhetorical strategies or making the connection or talking about the effect of rhetorical strategy within that moment, but actually connecting the purpose of that strategy back to something having to do with the whole piece, the tone, the purpose, the mood. So how do the parts function to create the whole? These are, if you can include that step of analysis, then you should be scoring well on this particular essay. All right, so let's take a look at an example. I'm going to read this out loud, and then we're going to look at the different elements within this analysis prompt. In his second inaugural address, given 1 month before the end of the Civil War, President Abraham Lincoln surprised his audience, which expected a lengthy speech on politics, slavery, and states' rights, with a short speech in which he contemplated the effects of the Civil War and offered his vision for the future of the nation. Read the address carefully, then write an essay in which you analyze the rhetorical strategies President Lincoln used to achieve his purpose. Okay, so let's take a look at the sections. The first section of this prompt, and in fact, as you can see here, by far the most lengthy section of this prompt, is actually the background and context for this passage. Is the College Board giving you this information because they want you to know more about the second inaugural address? No. The purpose of providing you with this background and context is so that you can write a more thorough and well-developed analysis of the rhetoric in this passage. So what that means is as I said, we're not just looking at a passage to try and find rhetorical strategies. We're trying to connect the strategies and the rhetoric back to the larger elements, like the purpose and how the piece fits within the rhetorical situation. So what the College Board is doing is giving you some really important information about the rhetorical situation for this passage, which you will then use when you write your analysis. So let's actually look at what they're telling you. First, it says in his second inaugural address. All right, that piece of information tells you something about President Lincoln's ethos. He does not need to establish himself as president. He has been president for 4 years. Now, he's been president through an incredibly divisive time in American history, so there is that element for sure, but he's not new on the job, right? He's already been a leader for 4 years. And this tells you too, the fact that it's an inaugural address, it's a traditional formal speech that's been given by many presidents before him. Okay, the speech is given 1 month before the end of the Civil War. So again, there's been this bloody battle that's been going on for years, and it's finally coming to a close. It's in its waning hours. So that, of course, is going to affect the content of Lincoln's speech. Now, the College Board tells us that the College Board tells us that the audience would have expected a long speech, and that Lincoln wrote a short speech. So we have to consider why he would have done so and what the effect of that unexpected brevity would have had on the purpose of Lincoln's speech. The College Board also tells us that within the speech, he contemplates the effects of the Civil War and offers his vision for the future of the nation. Now, that's not exactly the purpose, but more the subject matter that he deals with in this particular speech. Okay. This next little bit is found in pretty much every analysis essay prompt. They recommend that you read the address carefully, or whatever it is carefully, and then write an essay. So you know that you'll be reading and writing. The most important part here is this specific task that usually comes at the very end of the prompt. This is where you find out what it is you're being asked to do and what it is you're being asked to analyze. So let's dig into this portion of the prompt a little more deeply. Again, with the analysis essay, you're going to be analyzing. So as a reminder, it means to break apart, to look at how those parts function to create the whole, okay? I'm skipping this here to come to this point here because, again, this is something that I think most students overlook. But if you notice, the College Board is asking you to analyze the rhetorical strategies President Lincoln used to achieve his purpose. But the College Board does not tell you what Lincoln's purpose is. That's up to you, and that's a critical element because the rhetorical strategies you analyze must connect back to the purpose of his speech. Now, I want to clarify that purpose doesn't have to be just one thing. I know the College Board says purpose singular, but purpose can be more than one thing. Going back for a second, they actually, again, when they were talking about the subject matter of Lincoln's speech, contemplated the effects of the Civil War, offered his vision for the future of the nation. That alludes to two different purposes in this speech, and that's okay. But what's really important, no matter what you do, you have to identify that purpose, and that's something you should identify within your introduction. It really should be part of your thesis, that you've understood what his purpose or purposes are in this speech. Okay. Then we come to how does Lincoln achieve his purpose, right? Those are the parts. This is the whole. These are the parts. How does he actually achieve his purpose? And those should be significant elements within the passage. When you read the passage and you annotate, your annotations should be purposeful. And knowing that you're in a time situation, knowing that this is what you're reading to understand, that should guide your annotation. So as you read the passage the first time, you know that you're looking for evidence of Lincoln's purpose or purposes, and you're looking for rhetorical strategies that connect to the purpose. Okay, so let's take a moment, and I'm going to read this prompt out loud, and then your teacher can pause this video and give you all a chance to either write down or discuss those elements within this particular prompt. So this prompt says, on the 10th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., labor union organizer and civil rights leader Cesar Chavez published an article in the magazine of a religious organization devoted to helping those in need. Read the following excerpt from the article carefully. Then, in a well-written essay, analyze the rhetorical choices Chavez makes to develop his argument about nonviolent resistance. Okay, and while you're doing that, I'm going to correct my spelling on this because that's important. See, always editing. Okay, so again, take a look at this prompt. You're looking for those three elements. You're looking for the background and context. You're looking for your tasks in general, and you're also looking for your specific task. Within your specific task, you're trying to figure out the what are they asking you to understand, and what's the whole piece that they want you to connect your analysis to, and then where do you see the how. So I'll give you a moment to do that. Okay. Finally, if you'd like one more piece of practice, one more prompt for practice, I should say, here is another prompt that, again, if your instructor, if your teacher so chooses, he can pause this video or she can pause this video to allow you to analyze this prompt for those elements as well. And when you are done with that, I would just like to say, fare thee well, young scholars. Myself, Dr. Shea, Mr. Scalen, Mrs. Offseas, and the entire team at Bedford Freeman & Worth who worked on this book, The Language of Composition, 3rd edition, wish you the best of luck this year in your studies, and we look forward to helping you achieve your best possible learning in this course.